Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Verzeus, another Retrozone Game Buddy Shoot 'em Up. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From publisher Gotcha Gotcha Games, Verzeus released for the Nintendo Switch in November of 2022. So this title is the 7th in the fictional Game Buddy series. Game Buddy basically being this Game Boy clone. And the title has basically had these various takes on some genre staples. So we had one that was an Arkanoid title, we had one that was a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, there have also been fighting games, puzzle games, and now we find ourselves with Verzeus, which is the horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up take on the Game Buddy. So, especially if you enjoyed the previous titles in this particular series, including Thunder Striker, which is one I highly recommend you check out, that's the other shoot 'em up, then this is one that's worth having a look. So, diving into the game itself, we find ourselves at the main menu. There are a couple modes that you can play this game in. There's the boss battle, there's a practice, and then there's the normal mode. Before we dive into the gameplay themselves, let's talk a quick bit about the options. So there's not much as far as the option menu is concerned here. You have your user manual, which is nice and kind of has this retro feel to it. And you also have filters. So you've got two options. You can have the retro filter so you can see it as more of a Game Boy presentation, or you can turn that off for a clear view, which was what we'll use to better show off the game. Starting the game, we do have the ability to select from easy, normal, or hard difficulties. We'll just go with easy to start off, and we're thrown into a rather familiar setting. So basically, we're moving through space, fighting these formations of enemies, very similar to something like Gradius or R-Type, with the ability to power up, and there's a and pretty decent variety of power-ups overall. So the first power-up you'll encounter is the S, which is your speed. You do have to be careful though. It can go from speed up to speed down. Unfortunately, I accidentally picked it as speed down, so no benefit there from us, but it is kind of neat that it'll switch from one to the other. It can prove useful as in certain situations you don't want to be going significantly faster. Over the course of the gameplay, we'll also be getting orbs, and there's a couple other weapon types as well. There's M, which is a missile. There's 3 types of that. V for Vulcan, and ultimately L for laser. So each weapon, the missiles, the Vulcan, and the laser all have 3 different versions. So for the missile 3 is the one that I enjoy the most, as it's your homing missile, but you also have missile 1, which acts as a bomb, and missile 2, which fires in a wave pattern. It's possible for your ship and each of the 2 orbs that we pick up to each have their own different weapon, so you can actually really customize your loadout, save for the fact that you have to carefully pick up the power-up with the orbs individually. You can control the orbs by pressing the A button. You can either pull them into the ship, just so you're a tighter package and you don't necessarily run into any unwanted power-ups. Or you can press a directional button, press the A button, and they'll take a formation in that direction. So like if you wanted to focus your firepower forward, that's a possibility. You could go back, up, or down, or just press A with no button pressed to bring it back to neutral, which is one above, one below. There's also the option, or not necessarily the option, there are also a B power-up, which will give us a barrier, which can take a couple shots. You can equip that on either your ship itself or the orbs, which I thought was a pretty neat idea. So you can have the orbs, they don't block shots by themselves, but with those equipped, they will block shots as well. So right now we're seeing one of my favorite formations, or favorite loadouts to use, rather. I think that's probably the best way to refer to it, where I've got V2 on both of the orbs. which is like the forward and back fire. And then for the main shot itself, I went with Laser 3, which is the wave shot. So when you lose a life, the game isn't as punishing as some in like this era that they're emulating, like as far as like difficulty. You'll like start with a weapon that you died with, and you won't have both orbs, but you'll still have one. Missiles you'll have to collect as well, but I do appreciate that it doesn't completely set you back to just the bare bones minimum when you lose a life. It's definitely like a really nice like system there. So we find ourselves at the stage of, or the boss of stage 1. One thing that the game doesn't have, there's no easy way to see how much damage you've dealt to the boss. It's just you get in there, like deal damage, and hopefully with a little bit of patience and knowing the boss pattern, bam, we'll see that done on to the next stage. And really, that's what we have here as far as Verzeus is concerned. So it's one that I feel is really like does an excellent job of highlighting like what's fun and enjoyable, and kind of perfect, or not necessarily perfectly, but emulating like the feel of the shoot 'em ups that would have released on the Game Boy, and just in that particular era, the vertical scrolling shoot 'em ups of the time. As far as which of the two Game Buddy shoot 'em ups I like better, this one or Thunder Striker, I would say that Thunder Striker is probably the better overall game for a couple reasons. Faster paced, really decent music, and I do appreciate the upgrade system that it has to its couple weapons. But overall, like vertical scrollers, or rather horizontal scrollers, are more my cup of tea, so I do enjoy that particular element that this game brings to the table. It does have a couple minus flavors, however. So one thing that I do take as a bit of an issue with this one is its on the options for, well, just in general, and UI in particular, is really bare bones. You have those two filters and that's it, which I feel is a missed opportunity for something that's emulating the 4-color scheme of the Game Boy. If you had that 4-color design going on, why not include something kind of like Game Boy Color-esque and have the ability to, or give the player the option of changing to a couple other color schemes, still just keeping that whole like a 4-color element, so kind of giving it maybe a little bit of a Game Boy Color, Game Boy Player kind of feel. And then one thing that is really, really strange, especially compared to some of the other, the other shoot 'em up in the Game Buddy series, there's not any analog stick support. You have to use the D-pad to play Verzeus, which just seems a little bit weird for a game developed for the Nintendo Switch. It would make the most sense, in my mind at least, if the title did have support for the Switch analog, as especially if you're using the Joy-Cons, that's going to be your standard mode of play. So just a really weird like omission to the control scheme there. But as far as the plus flavors are concerned, I really, really feel that this game just nails the whole vertical scrolling Game Boy shoot 'em up. And for like that alone, I think it's worth checking out if you like those type of games, or vertical scrolling shoot 'em ups in general. And with that, that just about wraps up this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.